This episode of the Beauty Industry Podcast was brought to you by Professional Beauty Solutions. Hello and welcome to the Beauty Industry Podcast, your online support community for the professional beauty industry. I am your host, founding director of Beauty Industry, Tamara Reed. Here we are closing the competitive gap and speaking your language. This is a platform created and dedicated to the professional beauty industry, valuing community over competition. We serve to help connect you with inspiration from industry experts, expand your knowledge through educational pieces, and bring you the latest in product and technology innovation. This is Beauty Industry. Today, my guest is David Suzuki, President of Therapeutic. Chances are you're already familiar with the BT brands. You've probably used one of their tools in your treatment room, like the BT Analyse, to test your clients' results and their hydration levels before and after a treatment, the BT Micro to provide ultrasonic delivery of skincare, or the bio-hydroderm trinity as your exfoliation step in an advanced facial, and that is because they are sold in over 35 countries worldwide. Known as the pioneers in microcurrent technology, Therapeutic's professional skincare technology offerings include comprehensive microcurrent facial toning systems, wet and dry microdermabrasion, microexfoliation, and a handheld line that includes microsonic cleansing and ultrasonic exfoliation with models both for the professional and for your clients. Today, David and I explore the science of technology and skin, specifically the recharging of the mitochondria for better adenosine triphosphate levels. We talk through the facial muscle reeducation and sculpting, explore the difference between collagen and elastin, and even compare technology to more invasive services like injectables. If you have ever been in a treatment room using a device and thought, but why, and how does this actually work for my client, and you want to brush up on your skin science, then you will absolutely love today's conversation. Here's David and I for Beauty Industry. David Suzuki, welcome to the Beauty Industry Podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.
It is my absolute pleasure. I am so delighted to be joined with you today for this episode. I think Therapeutic is almost, I was going to say a household name in our industry, but not a household name, but it's certainly a clinic name in our industry. And I would love to go back all the way to the inception of your entrance into the professional beauty and aesthetic industry to kind of find out how you started.
Well, that's fantastic. And I appreciate that. We're really excited to be here. A little bit about our beginning. Well, we started in 1974. So in a lot of ways, in many territories, I think that we are the oldest standing skincare technology manufacturer practically in the world. And I think that's why we have become such a household name, as you put it. We started as a medical device manufacturer. We still are an FDA registered medical device manufacturer. We're also ISO 9001 and ISO 13485, which we're really excited about. And that just means that we meet the highest quality standards recognized on a worldwide basis. And we started both in a sports medicine, rehabilitation, wound healing, medical venue, and at the same time, age management. And our initial technology, our baby that we started with, that we still continue to hold so dearly today, is our microcurrent technology. And because of the different facets of efficacy and science and what it does for the body, it really is universally applicable for both healing and wellness and rehabilitation. But of course, what we're really interested in, and that is the best looking skin that we could have.
Yeah, incredible. And was there a moment where, you were doing the science, doing the sports, saw the aging world and wanted to specifically niche and target there, or has it just, evolved naturally?
It's been a pretty natural evolution, but I would say from the beginning. So we're a second generation company. My father started the company. And so I have literally grown up in the company since a child. And so I've grown up in the skincare world at trade shows, through going to skincare school, being a skin therapist myself, all the way to where I am today. And I think initially, my father's primary interest as more of an engineering scientist, entrepreneur, inventor was really about wellness, generally speaking. And that really for him had a very broad spectrum, from wound healing and just general wellness of the human body. Sports injury was always a big thing for him, but also looking and feeling your best. And the facets of the efficacy that microcurrent is responsible for, from a scientific standpoint, which is the stimulation of the mitochondria, being able to create more cellular energy in the form of adenosine triphosphate, becomes applicable to everything. And so once that science was known, it was really one of those kinds of things, which it still is today, as to which one is the most exciting pathway to go down, because there's so many things that you can apply cellular energy to, right? And I think it's still very interesting today, as we see the world becoming so specific since the 70s. And then it's now got a little bit more broad again. And we're really after, as a culture, a more comprehensive wellness, a more comprehensive relationship between medicine and skincare, and cellular energy, and all those other different kinds of things. So I guess, just to answer your question, that was a very long-winded answer, but I think to answer your question, I think it was one of those things where once the science was known and we could find the applicability to it in so many different venues, it was exciting, and it was almost something that we felt like we had to do to drive all those pathways, because we needed to bring that technology to everybody, to the world.
Absolutely. As you were talking there about science, it took me back to my high school, college education, where I was sitting in science class, just not understanding anything and just thinking, I am never going to use this in my actual career life, right? And then you get out into beauty school and aesthetics and you learn about the mitochondria and the ATP and the energy of the cell. And you go, oh my goodness, this just lights my bubble now. And now I want to use this in my treatment room. And when I do harness skin, and I've heard that kind of theme a lot, in our community, and certainly through therapists, is that they hated science, they hated chemistry, they didn't think they were ever going to use it. And now all that they talk about is the ingredients and the science behind it. Were you always like a science buff, or have you learned to love it, I guess, as you've seen the results?
Because I grew up in this world, and I grew up with quite an inventor and scientist myself. I guess I just thought it was always kind of normal, the engineering, to the applications, to the experiments, so to speak, and the clinical studies, and just the science as a whole. So I guess in that way, I was always very intrigued with it. I was always a very skeptical individual, and I still am a very skeptical individual. So I have strong beliefs in a lot of different things, but I also need to see the science to reconcile my beliefs. And so I think that in that way, I was very conservative in regards to any technology or any medicine or whatnot, because I really wanted to filter it out to make sure that, for example, from a manufacturing standpoint for us, that everything that we say that it does and expect to perform, that it really has the science and the mechanisms of action, and the evidence that it really is going to perform to that standard. And I think that's really, really important. So I think that always really, I guess, brought me together and brought me focused on science and clinical studies, and all the different evolution of how everything was interconnected within that world.
Yeah, incredible, incredible. Now, I'd love to go back to basics for just a moment, if we could, because I'd love to hear it per se, from the horse's mouth, because I know that there are a lot of estheticians and therapists out there trying to explain to their clients the benefits of using microcurrent. And sometimes that language gets a little bit lost. And, maybe we heard it from an educator who heard it from an educator who heard it from an educator, right? And it's almost ended up like Chinese whispers.
Yeah.
So biotherapeutic are the pioneers in microcurrent technology. What are those benefits?
I think that starting simple and then we'll go a little bit more elaborate. I think that one of the things that microcurrent has such a wow effect on is its ability to perform muscle reeducation, and that's the lengthening or shortening of the muscles. And that's how we see that lift and that big difference if you do one side of the face to the other side of the face. And that muscle reeducation or that sculpting of the face is super psychologically satisfying because you just feel it. You can see it, and it just seems so instant, which it is. And that's a process essentially of physically moving muscles and either lengthening them or shortening them, just depending on what's happened over time. We have a lot of muscles, the frontalis, the procerus, those kinds of things that are contracting just because of our facial expressions, and they become smaller. And so those we lengthen, and then the bulk of them, the other, 75%, like the masseter, upper masseter, and those sorts of things, we're constantly shortening because those have become longer over time. And that's why our muscles feel and look a little bit slack. So I would say the first wow thing that people see usually is that muscle sculpting, facial sculpting, or, some people call it muscle re-education. I think that's one great benefit. And I think that really helps to really sell your service because that's going to give that customer that satisfaction. I also think your product penetration capabilities are amazing. We're able to get up to 70% better product penetration when we use our patented Suzuki sequencing microcurrent technology than if you were just to apply the product by itself without technology. So when you think about that, we have all these amazing ingredients and we have all this great science with our skincare products. And the bulk of that science actually sits on the surface of the skin or dissipates before it actually even gets let into the, if you want to think about it like that, right? So at the end of the day, really, if you can increase that product penetration capability, we can really do justice to those amazing ingredients. So that by itself with the lifting, those are two great benefits. Now, if you look at it a little bit from the inside out, what we're able to do with our patented technology is we have specific frequencies, and it's very frequency specific, that can permeate the cell membrane and energize the mitochondria. So we create what we call, from a science standpoint, a proton gradient across the mitochondria. So you can almost kind of think about it sort of like plugging in your iPad or your computer or your iPhone. You have full power and you're able to function at peak capacity. And at the same time, you're charging your battery. And that's kind of what we do to the mitochondria, is all of a sudden we're able to upregulate the mitochondria activity, which its primary objective and job is to create adenosine triphosphate, which is our single cellular energy that we survive and thrive and live off of. And we can increase our mitochondria activity to the extent where we can produce up to 500% more adenosine triphosphate with our stimulation of our specific patented microcurrent than if you didn't apply microcurrent. So when you think about that, what ends up happening is that you have this amazing abundance of fuel that you did not have, similar to when we were younger. And all of a sudden that stimulates collagen production, elastin production, blood circulation, new blood vessels. It helps with the muscle tonicity. It helps with refining pores and the texture of skin, the color of the skin, and all those different things that really, I guess, equal and equate to beautiful, younger looking skin. Now, over the long haul, the great thing is that if you look at our collagen production studies, I mean, we're able to increase collagen production by almost 20% in less than a month, which is almost unheard of. And once we actually start the stimulation of new collagen, the studies indicate that collagen will continue to synthesize and continue to expand and evolve over the course of 3 or 4 months, even with no further stimulation. So it continues to get better. Same with elasticity. And the other thing is that the residual of that new collagen will stay somewhere in that local area for up to 24 months. So what that means is that not only are we actually doing some fantastic immediate things with muscle reeducation and texture and all these great ingredients that we can get into the living tissue to really do them justice, but then we're also working the long game, basically with the stimulation of adenosine triphosphate. So that's really the combination, the comprehensiveness of true microcurrent. But it is interesting because there's a lot of different electrical stimulation technology on the marketplace, regardless of whether it's something you find online for a handheld technology all the way down to professional technology, but it is extremely frequency specific to be able to communicate, so to speak, in cellular terms with the mitochondria. So not all electricity is created the same.
Interesting. Wow. Okay. I want to go back for 1 second because you've absolutely sold me. Hello, I'm your favorite customer. I think if a therapist or esthetician was listening and they took away 4 main points to kind of recap that to their client, if they were talking about a treatment menu option or even an upgrade, I'm having a classic facial. Why should I pay 25, 45, 65 insert amount of money for the microcurrent add-on today? If I took away 4 points and said, well, first of all, we're going to be re-educating the muscles, which is going to equal facial sculpting. We're going to get 70% better product penetration, which is absolutely insane. I'm going to be able to re-energize the mitochondria 500% more times than it's already being done in your skin, which is what you're telling me, the dull, the dryness, the kind of lifeless, lackluster skin that, holidays and things that have induced. And then that knock-on effect is that from this one treatment, not only are we going to be able to stimulate collagen, but this collagen stimulation can last up to 24 months. So today, in 2 years, your skin will remember this facial. Bang. How easy is that?
That's fantastic. And I think that's a good summary. And the thing with creating your own collagen, because I'm not necessarily, a lot of people say, since you come from such a organic technology, if you can call it organic, technology organic, we would fit that, that definition. But they think because we come from that more organic technology world that you must be anti-injectables and anti some of the other more medical procedures and things like that, and not at all. I mean, we're realists. I mean, we think that we're one spoke in the wheel for, and that everything has a place and everybody plays a part in that. But the great thing about creating your own collagen is that it's your own. So there's nothing that can beat that. The second thing is that you're constantly providing more and more of it as you're having micro services. So even if an injectable sort of a person, you're constantly getting more of your own. And I think that there's nothing that can really compete with that. The other thing in conjunction with collagen is elasticity. So elasticity, we were able to prove in our clinical studies that we can increase that up to 48% in that same time frame. And that's absolutely astounding. So collagen is difficult to produce in a short period of time as a whole. Most different sorts of technologies or products are really hard pressed to be able to show any collagen improvements in less than 60 days. So ours being able to be proven in that short period of time is a little bit off the chart and really amazing. But the elasticity is really, really off the chart. When we were doing our studies, we were really after collagen because I just felt like that was the most important thing, was the collagen synthesis, and the elasticity increases that we gained up to 48% in that same time period were absolutely astounding. It was a complete surprise to us. One of the great things about creating better elasticity is that, first of all, there's very few products and there's almost no other technologies that I'm aware of that actually create better elasticity in your skin. And elasticity is so important because it's the stretchability, the pliability, and almost that really that useful suppleness that your skin really shows. And what I tell people is that when you wake up in the morning, you see some of those vertical breaks that eventually by 11 or so start to kind of dissipate. That's your elastosis and your breaking elasticity. And it's the break in the fabric that really starts to have a significant visual appearance of aging, over a period of time. So one would kind of argue, is it really the lack of collagen, or is it lack of elasticity that really shows more aging than less? And I actually believe that the elasticity actually shows more aging quicker. It is a combination because you need the fullness and the suppleness of the collagen, but the elasticity is just something that essentially makes the skin feel crepey or look crepey. The fine lines, all the expression lines and things like that. Most of that is more elasticity driven than it is collagen driven. The other thing that I like to add to that is that regardless of how much you can inject into your skin, potentially to basically supplement your own loss of collagen, there's nothing that you can do to supplement loss of elasticity. If you don't have elasticity, you just don't have it,
Yes. As you were talking there, I'm thinking so much training, so many products, so much technology out there really heroes collagen production. And I'm wondering why we don't hero elastin production more often.
That's true. That's a good point. I think part of it is that there's not really many things out there that actually have an effect on it. Most of the things that I see in the marketplace, and I'm a huge fan of anything that really helps to stimulate ATP production and mitochondria activity, including things that are really big on cellular respiration, ingredients that are really big on the migration of essential fatty acids in the mitochondria. All these different sorts of things really are pretty interesting and exciting. We have some products that have those key ingredients, and there are some effects with elasticity, but they're still really, really small, but at least they do have some clinical improvements of elasticity in some of those particular products. But again, I think that we use some very interesting, very bespoke, unique ingredients that most people really aren't after. I think, in my view, when it comes to the aging process, I think the mitochondria and ATP is right at the core of it, because if you don't have enough ATP production and enough mitochondria activity, you simply don't have that cellular energy. And when we're 20, we have that peak level. By the time that we're 60, our ATP production of in the mitochondria is dissipated by nearly half. So when people make that statement that I just feel like I don't recover as fast, I don't feel like I heal as fast, I don't think as clearly, my muscles don't tone as easily, or are becoming more atrophy. The skin is becoming, fine lines and wrinkles and crepey and things like that. That's all true, because what we essentially are as people is we're living in a world where we have a constant battle against all the incoming. And our body does a fantastic job of repairing and defending and rebuilding, but it takes energy to do all those things. And what happens is that we can more or less keep up in real time when we're younger. I always tell people, when you're younger, you can stay out all night and pretty much consume and do just about everything you want, and you still look fantastic because you have a boatload of mitochondria activity and ATP, because that's when you're peaking out. But as you start to get older, all of a sudden things start to even out a bit, and then it starts to go the other direction, and you start having less and less mitochondria activity. As you have less mitochondria activity, you're still living in the same world, and you're still taking on, and in some cases you're taking on more depending on what your habits are. You're taking on a lot of incoming that your body just can't repair in real time. And so when you think about it, the aging process really is a collection of damage. It's a collection of damage that hasn't been repaired in real time, because we simply don't have enough energy anymore to make those repairs. And that's the definition of aging, in my view. And so when we think about what would be the absolute best for us to manage that aging process, and it's any way that we can figure out how to increase mitochondria activity so that we can create more ATP that can feed the body. And that's one of the reasons that microcurrent, specifically our microcurrent, is so sought after by medical professionals and sports injury individuals and things like that. Because if you can increase that ATP production in any part of the body, it doesn't matter if it's an injury, if it's a pulled muscle, if it's tissue damage or whatnot, we can usually, by applying and increasing the ATP production, we can massively upregulate the process in that regard.
Wow. Okay. So the solution to anti-aging, increase the mitochondria activity. Now, how we do that is obviously through the likes of Microcurrent. After the break, David talks about the difference between home and professional technology, as well as sharing insights into the combination of water and microdermabrasion. But first, a word about the brilliant brand that Biotherapeutic partner with. Bringing you 14 world-class professional beauty brands that work in harmony, Professional Beauty Solutions take a 360-degree approach to doing business with their salon partners, offering you everything you need to run a successful, profitable beauty business. Experience the convenience of having all of your business needs met by a single supplier. Enjoy the personal touch that only a family-owned business can offer, and benefit from the exceptional service, training, marketing support, and business education they offer. From award-winning aesthetic devices, advanced cosmeceutical skincare and mineral makeup, to internal skincare products, tanning, and spa and body treatments, PBS pride themselves on providing their salon and clinic partners with amazing products that achieve real results, along with the level of convenience and business support that no other company can. Visit www.probeautysolutions.com.au to find out more. And now, back to David. You touched base on before the difference between the kind of home use units that we're seeing and then the professional, and specifically you mentioned there the frequency of electricity. Can we talk about that a little bit more?
You bet. So frequency in the human body are very unique. You can kind of think about reactions in the human body similar to a mobile phone. And in that, what I mean is that if I send you a text message, it will float around the entire world, and there's zillions of phones out there, probably a dozen phones, maybe even in your household or close by kind of a thing, but it will only go to your phone because that's a frequency specific connection that allows that communication to be to you and only to you. And when it comes to the human body, creating stimulation within the body, whether it's mitochondria activity, whether it's a calming sensation to return the body, the tissue back to a state of homeostasis, or whether it's upregulating or downregulating other chemical reactions in the human body, like melatonin and serotonin and all those different kinds of things. It's all frequency based. And so if you have the right frequency, then you can penetrate, for example, the skin, the cellular membrane, all the way into the mitochondria, and really work with the mitochondria on similar electrical signals that the body already currently recognizes as friendly. And that's really how you can communicate. But if you don't understand the frequency science, then it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack, because simply applying electrical current is kind of like taking a random key and trying to stick it into your door, hoping that it works, kind of a thing. It's a key and it's a door, and there's a lock there that has a key receptacle, but that does not mean that that key will open the door at all. It's got to be a very unique, specific kind of a thing. So that's what we do. We dial into essentially what we know from our decades of experience and science and efficacy studies and whatnot, all the responses that we've got from the field. And we build upon that, and we continue to test frequency because it's really, really specific. And even after almost 50 years, we still feel like we're only scraping the surface.
Wow. I love that analogy, because I think nowadays more than often, our clients are very tech savvy. They want all of the handheld devices. They want to use them all at home, and they're questioning us, why should I use your professional device? Why should I pay you insert amount for an upgrade or an add-on when I can get a similar thing at home? So I think if we use that key in the door and the lock analogy, that's a really good way of explaining without kind of diminishing what they're using at home, because of course we never want to, badmouth another brand, for example.
Absolutely. Yeah. I understand that. And, we, and the main thing I would say about even professional technology that you see out there that uses electrical stimulation or handheld, most of it notoriously is going to use really what we would consider more of an EMS or electrical muscle stimulation kind of a concept. And what we mean by that is that if you put enough energy out of a technology and shock the the nerve motor points. It's kind of like taking the little hammer and tapping it on the knee and watching the knee go up. And that's basically what happens. And it causes the muscles to expand and contract artificially. And a lot of people think, well, that's microcurrent. And then after I do that, my muscles are really toned. And that's true. They do get toned. But what happens is that high level of energy, and we consider anything over 400 microamps high energy, but a lot of these technologies will use up to 2,000, 3,000, even 4,000 microamps. What happens is that the body sees that energy as an invader or something that's absolutely not organic to the body. And so when it starts to feel the body being manipulated to the point where the muscles are going back and forth involuntarily, what the muscles do is they contract as a defense mechanism, because what they want the muscles to do is they want to basically freeze them and stop them from doing that crazy movement that this outside source of energy is requiring them to do. And so what they do is they contract, which to a consumer makes them feel like, wow, it's so toned, I can barely even move my mouth and I can barely even eat because my muscles are so contracted. That's just an awesome result. But what happens is that once the body stops receiving that stimulation, they start to relax a bit, but it's taken all of their ATP to keep it in a contracted state that they've actually exhausted and depleted the muscles of ATP. And if they continue to use that electrical muscle stim kind of handheld, or it could even be a professional technology, they'll get a little bit more contraction again. But over a period of time, what happens is the muscles become flaccid and lifeless. And the reason being is because once they're completely depleted of ATP, they basically have no form anymore. It's just kind of like a wet noodle. And it will eventually, over a period of time, come back. So it won't be like a permanent problem as long as they stop using it over a period of time. But that's the big difference between true microcurrent. True microcurrent doesn't cause what we call a visual or a physical contraction of the muscle via the electrical current. You physically are moving the muscles through, muscle movements, or what we would consider kinesiology. And then what we're doing is we're actually stimulating the mitochondria activity within the muscle and the tissue to create more ATP. The kinesiology itself moves the muscle as like massage therapy, so we can shorten or lengthen the muscle with or without electrical current. The electrical current's role is not to shock the muscle with microcurrent, but it's to stimulate ATP. That increase of ATP gives it a lot of energy and a lot of stamina to stay in that new position now for a longer period of time. Now, if we continue to do services, so let's say we do a couple services per week over the course of, let's say, 3 weeks or whatnot, now we are giving it continuous, consistent conditioning to stay in that new position. And eventually the mind will start to understand this is the new norm, and the electrical system of the human body helps to keep that tonicity or that shape. So it's kind of like, I guess you could think about it a little bit like working out. You go to the gym and, the body kind of is in shock a little bit at first, and over a period of time, it starts to be conditioned for that workout, and it starts to realize that this is my new thing.
Yes, that's me right now. I'm 4 workouts into the new year and my body is shocked. So I'd love to chat to you about skincare, because Biotherapeutic has your own skincare, but you've kind of done it the opposite way of everybody else in the industry. So a lot of our companies in the industry start with skincare, master that, and then kind of go into the tech side and start to develop devices and machineries to assist the skincare, except you have been doing technology since the 70s, so you're well versed in that. So then latter came the skincare side of things. What was that kind of vision, and was that always a vision to introduce skincare at a later part of the journey?
Initially it wasn't part of the vision, but what happened is that as we began moving into the skincare world and starting to have a great customer base and whatnot, one of the big challenges was understanding all the different brands of skincare that were out there, and then trying to create protocols or trying to figure out what in each line was going to be acceptable and practical to use. And there's a lot of great skincare products out there, and there's even more now than there was then. But one of the things that's unique about BT Ceuticals, which is our skincare product line, is that we design it specifically and exclusively to be used with technology, rather than trying to figure out how to secondarily use it with technology, because I would like to also figure out how my brand can be used with technology so that it can be more broad, for example, for my customer base, sort of a thing. So ours is very unique in that way. It's basically water-based. It is color-free. It's paraben-free. It's fragrance-free. It's highly conductive. We use very high levels of all of our active ingredients. We have white paper efficacy studies on every active ingredient that we use in there. If you know a little bit about ingredients or study ingredients or efficacy studies for ingredients, you'll see that usually there's a range that might be, 0.2% to 5% of a particular ingredient to basically be applicable for different sorts of formulations. But if you read in the fine print of the efficacy study, you'll see that it was 5% that created the wow effect of new collagen production or elastin production or smoother skin or whatnot. So we're the type of company where we go big or we don't do it at all. And that's kind of how we kind of think about things. And I can't really see the point in creating something if I cannot get a result on myself. And we always say that half the reason why we're so passionate is because we're aging individuals, we're aging humans, we're aging skin therapists, and we're obsessed with the skin. And so everything that we're creating and developing and researching, we're doing as much for ourselves as we are for the world, because we want also to have the best looking skin. And so we go out and we will put together the highest percentage of active ingredients that I think is available on the marketplace, whereas a lot of organizations and a lot of skincare products will put that same ingredient in their formula, but they do it more for the marketing purpose so that they can actually also state all the claims or see what this did in these efficacy studies and things like that. But at the same time, they sort of leave out the fact that they put 0.2% in opposed to the 5%, right? We feel like we're going to put the entire thing in, almost to the point where a lot of times our formulators will ask us, are you sure you want to put that much in? I'm not quite sure. We've never seen anybody that's put that much in. And we go to the absolute max of what we can do. And then we'll take it back from there if it makes the viscosity too thick, or it does something other, it's something else unusual to the mix kind of a thing.
And that's not always the most cost effective, but I like that it's the most results effective, right?
It's not. I usually say we are from a cost of goods standpoint, we are terrible because we really spare no expense, and we spend all of our money on these ingredients. But like I said, as they say, in America, go big or go home, kind of a thing. And that's kind of how we are. We figure it's not even worthwhile actually making it to basically skimp on it. If we're going to do it, let's do it all the way. And let's make sure that basically we feel good as individuals actually using this. And we're obsessed with our own product. We bathe in it practically, because we're so excited about the ingredients. And we can't wait to create more products, and we're ingredient hungry and science hungry. Whenever something new comes out, that's all we talk about. So we're kind of geeks when it comes to technology and ingredients.
No, I love that. It's like a skinny chef. It just doesn't work, right? You have to be obsessed with your brand.
Right.
Now, one thing I am obsessed with, you probably don't know this, but I've used your microdermabrasion machine for a good 10 years, and I've tried many, many others, and I always come back to it. It's one of my favorites. And it's also something that gets asked in our beauty community quite a lot. We would be remiss if we didn't talk about it. What is the difference between hydro and the normal micro and the solutions? Can you just talk to those who haven't used the I was going to say product, the technology before,
Right.
as to why you would have that water element in a microdermabrasion when your primary aim is to exfoliate the skin?
Right. Yeah, I think that's that's a good question. And we call ours the bio-hydroderm Trinity in our international markets. That technology is also available in our multifaceted unit called the BioPenta, which has also got our wet dry microdermabrasion on board as well. And I guess the thing with wet dry microdermabrasion, or let's say microdermabrasion, even back in the day when we used to manufacture the crystal original kind of technology. The wow effect and the psychological effect of microdermabrasion, whether it be wet, dry, or crystal, is something that is undeniable. It's something that you can feel. It's something that you can see. It makes the skin look beautiful. It gives great color. It basically is something that is instant, but at the same time, it's one of those things where every time you look in the mirror for the next couple of weeks, you can still feel it a little bit and you can see it. And people comment about that, right? As they do with microcurrent. So I think in that way, it's just a mainstay to have that in your business. When we went from crystal without fluids into basically our hydrodermabrasion version of exfoliation, I think that was a major breakthrough. We use different sorts of what we call flavors of aquafuse products onto the surface of the skin. So we have one for hydrating, we have one for brightening, we have one for clearing. And so we have all these different sorts of products that we can add to the mix. We have different abrasive tips that go from a very smooth to a more robust kind of rough exfoliation. So you can kind of think of the services a little bit as how, like when we do our nails, we might go a little bit rough when we're doing the quicker, broader shaping, and then we get all the way down to the end where we're actually buffing them. And that's kind of what we do with the skin. Because we have so many different abrasive tips that we can work with and so many different fluids, we can really be applicable to just about any kind of skin, regardless of the age or the Fitzpatrick type. There's really no kind of skin that does not actually get a good result from our wet dry microdermabrasion. So it's really fun. It's really quick. It's really diverse in that you can do something really, really extensive. You can do a really light service. It just really is going to be multifaceted in that way. And there's really not a personality type that I've run across that does not like it. It's just really probably the broadest kind of technology that I would say that interests more of your clients than just about any other technology.
Absolutely. And in my experience, with a more mature client, say a 50, 60, they were introduced to the harshest of harsh microdermabrasion when it first came out. And so when, I'm talking to these more mature clients, they're saying to me, oh, no, I don't want to try microdermabrasion because it ripped my skin off. It was stripping. It was so dry. I had scratches all over my skin. But when you just do a little test patch with the Hydro Micro, they feel the coolness. They feel that beautiful sensation. It's almost like that white noise of the bubbling in the background. And it really changes their whole perception of the treatment, which, kind of gets them across the line sometimes.
It does. And it's funny that you say that because you kind of get two different kind of clients. You get some clients that say, I used to use the traditional microdermabrasion that you manufactured, and I don't think that this new one is strong enough, right? And it's more than strong enough. But what used to happen with the old school technology is that it had to have such an enormous motor because it was vacuuming this sand, basically sand corundum, through the system. And it was really, really, it took a lot of energy. And as a result, essentially, it had a lot of real bitey feeling on the surface of the skin. And so a lot of the redness or the striping and the unevenness or the irritation of the skin and everything else, a lot of that was more driven by the excessive vacuum. And the excessive vacuum also is not great for elasticity because it overstretches the skin. So what we were able to actually do with our bio-hydroderm Trinity is we were able to put the minimum amount of vacuum that was absolutely necessary. And so if you look at our handpiece on our bio-hydroderm Trinity, it has what we call a plastic sheath. And the plastic sheath basically runs across the surface of the skin. The fluid does a fantastic job of multiple different things, but one of them is to hydrate and to basically create a really smooth surface for that handpiece to glide against. And then what happens is that the light amount of aspiration we have gently lifts the tissue into the handpiece where that diamond encrusted abrasive tip is. And so if you don't have the vacuum intact, if you don't have the vacuum on, there's no abrasive happening. Once you turn the vacuum on, you'll get that light vacuum aspiration of the skin into the handpiece, which will put it in perfect contact with the diamond encrusted tip. And so it really takes out of the entire mix the variable of the pressure of the handpiece on the skin from the skin therapist, because we as humans are probably the most inconsistent. So what it does is it takes that out of the mix. It's going to give us always that perfect exfoliation, and it's going to leave the skin completely hydrated. It is a very interesting experience because you can feel the moisture on the skin. You can hear the fluid on the skin. So it's kind of an audio effect. You can feel a little bit of the aspiration on the skin. You can feel the abrasion. So it's really a lot of different sensations all at once, but the result is amazing. You're right, with traditional microdermabrasion back in the day, it was definitely one of those kind of services where you wanted to make sure that your customer wasn't going out that night, and potentially even for the weekend, because the best results were probably going to be about 5 to 7 days later, right? And with wet dry microdermabrasion, specifically the bio-hydroderm Trinity, it's one of those kind of services where you want to have it before the big event, because the skin looks so beautiful and so hydrated right after you have it. Well, the first thing that usually people say is, wow, what'd you do to your skin? It looks really, really fantastic. It looks really even. The color is amazing. What kind of service did you have? Kind of a thing. And so those are the kind of results that you get, and they just get better every time you come in.
Absolutely. Now, I'd love to hold you ransom for just one more question, if I
Sure.
can. And it's an exciting one because Biotherapeutic and PBS, Professional Beauty Solutions, are now partners, which is so exciting. And we have a really special place in our heart for the team at PBS. Tell us about, this new relationship.
Yeah, well, we have now been in partnership with PBS since last year, since 2021. So it was a fantastic time where we all had time on our hands to get everything situated or whatnot. So we're really excited about that. They are amazing people as a whole. We always say that we love to do business and have partnerships with people that we have so much in common with, and we do with PBS. So that's just, it was one of those things where when we met them, we knew that they were the right match for us. They believed in the same things as we did. Their company is very similar to ours as far as structure, mindset. The owner's involvement is really a big part of that, and just their dedication to everything: education, customer satisfaction, just their integrity is amazing, and they are just amazing people. So we're really, really excited about that, and we just think that it's the best partnership, honestly, that I've seen in a really, really long time, and we're just really excited to see all the great things that happen moving forward.
Incredible. Well, I mirror that excitement and congratulate you both. It's two brilliant companies that, I couldn't think of a better fit. So I'm excited to see what you both do here in Australia, moving on into 2022. And David, thank you so much for coming and having a chat with me today. It's been an absolute delight. I'm sure our science buffs are going to be lapping up this episode and certainly eager for more. So thank you.
Well, fantastic, and I appreciate you having me. I really enjoyed my my time here with you, and am eager to come back if you have some interested listeners.
Absolutely, we will do that.
All right.